My name is Jess Keates, and this is my presentation for SLL Young Lighter of the Year 2024, discussing my proposal for Beyond the Line. This presentation will discuss our understanding of visual discomfort and the background of my research into the effects of spatial frequency and contrast, as well as my proposal for applying this in a useful and practical way to lighting design. My research began looking into visual discomfort as a whole. We know there are many factors which influence visual comfort, and many of these are well researched and understood, with extensive guidance available and easily measurable. However, there is a clear gap in guidance around spatial frequency. Spatial frequency is essentially the composition of a scene measured in cycles per degree. Experiments exposing participants to simple stripe patterns have shown that images with a spatial frequency of 3 cycles per degree create the greatest discomfort. This would be similar to the image on the right. However, this is not representative of the scenes which we are typically exposed to. So how do we understand the spatial frequency of a complex visual scene? Well, this can be done by using mathematical Fourier series and is thought to be a similar way in which our brains process visual images. Although we don't see a number in cycles per degree, we just know how it makes us feel psychologically or physiologically. And it would be incredibly complex for us to do this by hand. However, it can be done by using computer algorithms. So moving on to lighting design, the closest we come in terms of guidance, which would lead to a lower spatial frequency, is that of creating visual interest. In reality, following best practice, you would have areas within a room illuminated in different ways to ensure good vertical illuminance and providing the occupant of the space with a welcoming environment. In reality, we still design spaces with a blanket of light. These fields of light are also regularly paired with dark interior treatments with the aim of creating so-called dynamic or modern or techie spaces. What this actually does is creates the perfect pairing for visual discomfort. But that isn't always the case. There are many instances where best practice is applied successfully. Here we have an example of this where we have increased illuminance at task level through concealed local lighting and direct-indirect luminaires to increase ceiling brightness and to reduce contrast. Another example here showing that we don't always need to avoid dark ceiling treatments, particularly where these are paired with low glare luminaires to reduce contrast, and the lighting is also broken up across the space to avoid repetitive treatments. However, the challenge we face here is having access to tools and knowledge to implement this sort of best practice across the board. So through my research, I wanted to start closing the gap in knowledge around the application of spatial frequency to interior lighting treatments. My study applied our knowledge of patterns which create visual discomfort against the lighting arrangement, testing 3 parameters of spatial frequency, contrast and area. I selected variations of each factor based on what had been shown to create the greatest visual discomfort, as well as what is a more typical arrangement, and for the third, a midpoint between the 2 extremes. This image is a combination of the 3 extremes and was predicted to create the greatest discomfort in viewers. And in contrast, the image which was predicted to have the least discomfort response. The outcome of the study showed that spatial frequency and contrast, 2 of the parameters, had significance in their impact on visual discomfort, showing that the arrangement of lighting within a space, as well as the room finishes, can interact to create discomfort. These findings have implications not only for lighting designers, but also for architects. So how do we get beyond the line? When designing these spaces, typically we will complete calculations, often within a software such as Dialux or Relux. These tools are fantastic for providing an understanding of how the lighting will perform in terms of illuminance, uniformity, etc. What if it was possible for this to be extended to understanding the potential for visual discomfort within the layout of the lighting against the surface finishes that have been specified? This would give the tools to the designer to go beyond a repetitive layout of light and open up discussions on the interior finishes and give information to the design team members of the implications of these finishes on user discomfort. My aim is to look in more depth at how a tool such as this can be developed with a software manufacturer to allow designers to simply assess the spatial frequency of their design. In order to assess an image, a code would need to be developed based on Fourier mathematics. This image below shows a mock-up of how I would envisage this appearing in a tool that we're familiar with. Paired with this, we would need to add to guidance to allow measured spatial frequency to be compared against quantified parameters and to give designers the confidence and knowledge that they need to design for holistic visual comfort. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.